Hey, everybody, let me tell you about Anchor. This is how I actually made my podcast and the platform that I use it on. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's actually the easiest way to make a podcast. So let me explain. First off, I Googled how to make a podcast and this came up. It's free, which really got my attention. Also, there's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. I do it right here on my phone and my computer, sending it out to friends and family and anyone else who wants to listen. Anchor will also distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, whatever else place you put it on. Right now, I'm on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Play. What's awesome as well is you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. So what does that mean? You don't have any listeners right at the moment, or you have a few, you can still make money off of it, which also attracts us because in this economy and the way we're going, we're all trying to be entrepreneurs and we want to make some money. So here's a perfect time to do it. So if you are thinking about starting a podcast, why wait? You should start right now. Download the free Anchor app and go to anchor.fm to get started. Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy here, Christian Israel. And it is March 25th, and you are now listening to the New Creation Podcast, Episode 2. Today, we're going to dive into the story of the day, which is the FDIC warning. Yes, warning about taking your money out the banks. You don't want to miss this one. We'll also have the fact of the day and just some little good news for you. So I hope you guys are ready to listen. I hope you guys are ready to tune in. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share this podcast. Thank you guys for listening. Remember, it's a new you, a new future, and a new creation. Now let's dive right on in.
We're living in unprecedented time. At a time of a pandemic like this, it is way too easy to get confused and to have fear about what you should be doing with your money in your accounts, especially as you're looking at the volatility in the stock market and the financial sector. This is what I would like you to take away from this. Your money is safe at the banks. The last thing you should be doing is pulling your money out of the banks now, thinking that it's going to be safer someplace else. You don't want to be walking around with large wads of cash, and you certainly don't want to be hoarding cash in your mattress. It didn't pan out well for so many people. And I will tell you this, no depositor has lost a penny of their insured deposits since 1933 when the FDIC was created. So if you're talking about having your money in a safe place, please keep it in an FDIC insured bank.
All right, so today's story, you just heard the segment. I came across this tweet from the FDIC at FDIC.gov where they have Jelena McWilliams, basically telling us, forget the mattress, keeping large sums of cash at home is risky. And I thought that's interesting because she says it didn't pan out so well for people. Let me play that section for you real quick one more time.
Pan out well for so many people.
Listen.
Walking around with large wads of cash, and you certainly don't want to be hoarding cash in your mattress. It didn't pan out well for so many people.
It didn't pan out well for so many people. Like, first time I talked, I was thinking maybe this young lady, this grown woman, right, is just trying to do the banks and say, stay with us, but that just struck me. So before I go on this, remember, if you haven't shared this podcast, this might be one of those you want to share. Hit me up on Twitter at New Creation Cap. But let's dive into who said this, because the woman here has the FDIC. Her name is Jelena McWilliams. So I started to look in and see Jelena McWilliams, Jelena. Jelena McWilliams. Jelena McWilliams is the chairman of the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. She was nominated to the position and to the FDIC Board of Directors by President Donald J. Trump. And the Senate confirmed her appointment on May 24th, 2018. She was sworn in on June 5th, 2018. So what exactly is the FDIC, right? So I wanted to look a little bit and see what the FDIC is. So it says the FDIC, which stands for the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, is an independent government agency in charge of banking and consumer safety. You are protected from losses if your FDIC insured bank goes belly up. Now, this next part here caught my attention. It says, assuming your funds are in qualifying accounts and fall below the maximum dollar protected limit. So, okay, hold on. I'm going to read that real quick one more time. You're protected from losses if your FDIC insured bank goes belly up, assuming your funds are in qualifying accounts and fall below the maximum protected dollar limit. So what does that mean? You're saying, okay, so if the bank is FDIC insured, right? So the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation assures, because they're a government agency and the bank is insured by them, your money is protected. If the bank goes belly up, assuming your funds are in qualifying accounts and fall below the maximum protected dollar. What is the maximum protected dollar limit and what is a qualifying account? So I decided to do some more Googling, and what I did is I came across this article here, and all this stuff is in the description. You can find all these articles, but it's on thebalance.com, and it says how FDIC insurance works and what it covers. Because I was curious, what is a qualifying amount, and what does that mean? A qualifying account and lower than the account. So here it says, we got some history of the FDIC first. Let's talk about that. So it says the FDIC was established by the Banking Act of 1933 during the Franklin D. Roosevelt administration as a response to the collapse of thousands of banks and associated loss of account holders' money that occurred during the Great Depression. Now, this is interesting because we fast forward back 90 years, we had the Great Depression, right? And when the Great Depression happened, banks collapsed, people lost their money. So in 1933, the federal government steps in and establishes the FDIC Banking Act of 1933. So now we know that any bank that is FDIC insured is backed by the full faith and credit of the U.S. government. Banks replenish the FDIC's funds by paying premiums. So they pay premiums, right? They have an interest that they pay. Okay, so they pay the government to make sure the government backs up the money in your account. Make sure you keep that in mind, okay? So what exactly is covered, right? It says credit unions are not covered by FDIC insurance. So right now, if you have your money in a credit union, your bank's not insured. But they have a similar type protection under the National Credit Union Share Insurance Fund, NCUSIF. So, but what is covered and what is not covered? Okay, it says FDIC insurance applies to deposits at covered banks, including deposit funds in checking accounts, saving accounts, CDs, which are certificates of deposit, and money market accounts. The FDIC insurance does not cover contents of safety deposit box, investments in stock, bonds, or treasury securities, such as T-notes, investments in exchange, trade funds, or money market mutual funds, insurance products such as annuities. All right. The items not covered aren't considered deposits, even though you have brought them through your bank. So if you do business through the bank and it's not technically a deposit into a checking account, savings account, a certificate of deposit, or money market account, it's not covered right there. Okay. But there is talking about limits here. So it says FDIC insurance is not unlimited. Again, this is in that same article, thebalance.com. It says FDIC insurance is not unlimited. By having too much money in one bank account, okay, back that up. By having too much money in one bank or one account. One more time. By having too much money in one bank or one account, you may be leaving yourself exposed. The $250,000 limit is separate for each bank where you have an account. So right there, this is not all of us, but it could be some of my listeners, right? If you have $250,000 in a bank account, that's it. That's the max. You have $250,001, you are not covered. Not covered at all. So if your bank goes belly up, kiss your money goodbye, unless you increase the FDIC insurance coverage available by using multiple banks or by structuring your accounts properly with a single bank. So by moving stuff out, which basically means you get one bank here, another bank here, and you move your money around. So we're talking big players, right? You got to have 6 figures times 2, 3, or 4 to move it around. So an example here they give is, for instance, if you have $250,000 in your individual account and $250,000 in your IRA at the same bank, while it might appear that you're over the $250,000 limit, you may be fully covered because of how your accounts are titled. Be careful about pushing the limit, though. If you receive any interest payments that send you over $250,000, these earnings may be at risk. So, if you have $250,000 and your account is a high-yield savings account, for instance, and you have that money that makes interest, basically, if the banks go belly up next week and all the interest you have over $250,000, it's gone. Wipe it, kiss it goodbye. They're only going to give you a $250K check. It's over with. Interesting, right? So up to $250,000. So I'm like, man, now I know that's not a lot of people, but that's a good amount of people. So why is this lady telling people to not take her money out the banks? You know, is there a reason not to take her money out the banks? We just heard her say this. So I want to play something for you because, you know, the person in charge of the FDIC is the federal banks or the Federal Reserve. So on a Twitter account here at VIS_IN_NUMERIS, this_N_numerous, right? They tweeted, the Federal Reserve says there is an infinite amount of cash. This is quite literally the reason Bitcoin was created. But let me play this clip for you here that was posted yesterday.
You don't need to. Your ATM is safe. Your banks are safe. There's enough cash in the financial system, and there is an infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve. We will do whatever we need to do to make sure that there's enough cash in the banking system.
I'm going to play that for you one more time, right? So you have, I'm going to play these back to back real quick. Okay, so let's go back to the FDIC Gov page and listen to what she says one more time.
We're living in unprecedented time. At a time of a pandemic like this, it is way too easy to get confused and to have fear about what you should be doing with your money in your accounts, especially as you're looking at the volatility in the stock market and the financial sector. This is what I would like you to take away from this. Your money is safe at the banks. The last thing you should be doing is pulling your money out of the banks now, thinking that it's going to be safer someplace else. You don't want to be walking around with large wads of cash, and you certainly don't want to be hoarding cash in your mattress. It didn't pan out well for so many people. And I will tell you this, no depositor has lost a penny of their insured deposits since 1933, when the FDIC was created. So if you're talking about having your money in a safe place, please keep it in an FDIC insured bank.
All right, so she says not since 1933. By the way, thing that happened right before 1933, all the banks went belly up. In 2008, all the banks were bailed out, so none of them went belly up. So of course no one's lost their money. But then we go to this interview on 60 Minutes, and he says,
you don't need to. Your ATM is safe. Your banks are safe. There's enough cash in the financial system, and there is an infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve. We will do whatever we need to do to make sure that there's enough cash in the banking system.
One more time.
You don't need to. Your ATM is safe. Your banks are safe. There's enough cash in the financial system, and there is an infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve. We will do whatever we need to do to make sure that there's enough cash in the banking system.
So this guy, you can't see him, but his eyes, he doesn't blink. It's so creepy. But it's a 60 Minutes interview. So you got Miss McWilliams saying, basically, don't take your money out of the bank, because if you take your money out of the bank and hoard it, it won't work out well for you. And then you got this gentleman that says, you don't need to take it. It's safe. It's safe. Money is safe. Money is safe. ATMs are safe. Why are they saying this? It says, we will do whatever there needs to be to do in order to make sure your money is safe. So what does that mean? So I went to @XRP Crypto Wolf, and he tweeted the conference today, and he says the National Economic Council Director Kudlow said the economic relief package will be $6 trillion. $2 trillion is for the direct assistance and $4 trillion for Federal Reserve lending power, so that this will be the largest financial package ever. It says XRP and other cryptos are my safe haven, quote unquote. So I'm going to play this for you real quick.
That fund, by the way, will be overseen by an oversight board and an inspector general. It will be completely transparent. So the total package here comes to roughly $6 trillion, $2 trillion direct assistance, roughly $4 trillion in Federal Reserve lending power. Again, it'll be the largest Main Street financial package in the history of the United States. Liquidity and cash for families, small business, individuals, unemployed, to keep this thing going. We're heading for a rough period, but it's only going to be weeks, we think. Weeks, months, not going to be years, that's for sure. And hopefully pave the way for continued economic recovery after this crisis.
So he says it will be, people will watch over it. They're going to print $6 trillion, which is insane to me. And then he says it's only going to be a couple weeks, we think, months, we think. We know for sure it won't be years, we think, right? So they're not sure. They're just going to be putting money at it. But how are they printing money? How are they printing money? We talked about it in yesterday's episode. And if you haven't got a chance to listen to yesterday's episode, it was about the fact that there was a stimulus bill for this that attached a digital dollar where everyone gets a digital currency and a digital wallet so we can get the stimulus package immediately. However, they're just printing money and printing money. So our money is safe in the banks and they're printing money. Why are they telling us about it? So they use the word quantitative easing, right? We heard a couple of days ago that there will be unlimited quantitative easing, which means they're going to, well, instead of me telling you, let's look it up. I decided to look up what is quantitative easing. And it says here, quantitative easing, also known as large-scale asset purchases, is a monetary policy where a central bank buys predetermined amounts of government bonds or other financial assets in order to add money directly into the economy. All right, so why do we think it's printing money? I mean, it says quantitative easing has been nicknamed printing money by some members of the media, central bankers, and financial analysts. With QE, the newly created money is usually used to buy financial assets and other government bonds. So QE, newly created money, printing money, right? It's newly created. It comes out of nowhere. So therefore, what's going on here, right? So obviously in 1929, Great Depression, we didn't have unlimited quantitative easing, right? We weren't printing. So therefore the banks went under because people began to withdraw all their money out of the banks, and the banks basically could not give people money. So as you guys know from last episode, the banks depend on debt and hoping people don't take out their money. So if people take all their money out, the banks go under. That's how the banks go under. But if I have a dollar and the dollar has lost 97% of its purchasing power since its creation, since the gold standard, right? How does that work? If I'm going to print something more and more and more, how is my dollar the same? How is it worth anything, right? So if you're printing money to buy stuff, to put money into the economy, what is the point of it? Okay, what is QE? What is the QE Fed? And it says here, quantitative easing, QE, is an expansion of the open market operations of a country's central bank. In the United States, the Federal Reserve is the central bank. QE is used to stimulate an economy by making it easier for businesses to borrow money. All right, you're telling me not to take my money out of the bank, but quantitative easing, apparently run by the Federal Reserve, which I told you yesterday, is not a government entity. It is a private entity of 5 major banks. That your job is to print the money so I can borrow money so we can put money back into the economy. So what if we don't take our money out of the bank, and what if we don't put our money back in the economy? What is the point of quantitative easing? Because right now you're giving $2 trillion to people and $4 trillion to corporations so people keep their jobs. But right now people are still getting laid off. So how exactly does it work? Like, it's supposed to increase the money supply to encourage lending and investment. But if the stock market is crashing, no one's investing. But if the banks are scared people are going to take out their money, no one's lending. But if you're giving all this money to people who are in debt, so they're trying to pay off their debts So they're already in a cycle. Because if you guys know about the bailouts, right, with the bailouts of the plane industry, right? I can't think of the name right now. The planes. Anyway, what they did was buy back their own stock. They didn't actually pay their employees and make their planes better. They bought their own stock to raise their thing, to increase this bubble anymore, basically putting a Band-Aid on 2008 instead of helping people. As you realize, they got bailed out. But if you look at how much people get paid an hour, hasn't really raised. So that's just interesting to me, because if they're printing money and quantitative easing, who pays for it, right? And so what Google says, it says, and it gives an example of the Bank of England. In reality, though, QE, the Bank of England, purchased financial assets, almost exclusively government bonds. So basically, they're buying all the bonds, all the treasuries, right? All the pensions that are created by new central bank reserves. So basically, the Federal Reserve prints money to give to the government to buy back stuff from the Federal Reserve. Okay, pause. So I owe you money, okay? So you're going to print the money, you're going to give it to me, and then I'm going to buy stuff from you with the money you just gave me. How does that work? So therefore, the dollar I just gave you really is worth nothing. So now we're already at zero interest rates because of quantitative easing. But what happens when we get to a negative interest rate, right? Like, this is about the banks, right? So if the banks get a negative interest rate, what happens? And it says here, a negative interest rate environment is, in fact, when the nominal interest rate drops below 0% for a specific economic zone, meaning the banks. So right now, the banks are at 0%. If they go negative, right, other financial firms would have to pay to keep their excess reserves stored at central bank rather than receiving positive interest income. And here is the key. We're at 0% right now, soon to probably be negative percent. So the question of this podcast today, episode 2, is should you keep your money in the bank and why? Well, they're telling you your money is safe. We heard it from 2 different levels there. However, they're at 0%. And if they're at 0% interest rates, they're no longer have any reason to keep your money in there because they're getting charged for it. So if you take it out, they're losing money. They need your money to stay working, but they're telling you not to take it out. And I just think this is so interesting because it's just robbing Peter to pay Paul, right? Rob Peter, pay Paul, rob Peter, pay Paul. I hope that makes sense to you, that they don't want you to take your money out of the bank, because if you do, they're going to go broke because they don't have enough money in their reserves. How do you not have enough money in your reserves? That's why the government is printing $1 trillion a day. So the banks can keep putting money into the system to keep pumping up the stock market because the banks are broke. The banks are broke. They don't have enough money in their reserve. How insane is that? That's insane. So they're not even stitching this up. They're not even putting a Band-Aid on it. They're just putting a paper towel on it. That's it. They're just putting a paper towel on it, which is interesting because they say your money might be safe. And I found this article at ccn.com written by Aubrey Hansen, Twitter handle @words_by_Aubrey. And it's titled, "Your money might not be as safe as the FDIC claims." And she gives reasons why. Okay, she says, the financial authorities are keen to tell us that our cash is safe in banks during the coronavirus pandemic. But is it really? As the COVID pandemic spreads, various factors could lead to complications with our money. So I decided to look and see what people are saying and what she says here. And she says there have been reports of people rushing to withdraw cash sums from their bank account in light of the corona pandemic sweeping the world. The FDIC is stressing to citizens that the safest place for their money is their bank, which we've been talking about. If the coronavirus spreads to such an extent that people aren't able to carry out critical jobs, the flow of cash could drop quickly. So they need cash. And then she shows some tweets here. She shows a tweet by @BenDavidConway. It says, from March 19th, 2020, "Today I started work at the hospital at 7 a.m. I left at 6 p.m. and stopped off at the supermarket on the way home. Empty shelves was hardly any fresh food. Impossible to get home delivery slots for at least 3 weeks. So people are panicking right now. And we know people are locked down. I mean, we've hit over 40,000 cases now in the United States. New York is the hotbed. And, I'm trying to not make this talk about the COVID-19, but you can't talk about what's going on in the stock market without it. Again, we don't know if it's the cause. We can't really say there's correlation to it directly, because if you're a trader, as I am, as I've told you guys in the first episode, then there was already a bubble. In 2008, it was a temporary patch. It's been an 11-year bull run because they bailed the banks out. Now the banks don't have money. But it says here, the FDIC can't control this one factor, right? I know the bank deposits are insured and protected at least $250,000, which we talked about. I also know that the bigger, more popular banks will be well capitalized, right? So we know that. And so we look at a tweet here from @AdAndTalk, right? His name is Roy, and people are the wild card. And he says here, this was on March 18th. So I went to bank today in person. Bankers are not really serving people because they are busy with paperwork, getting ready to shut down their branch. Banks are closing soon. ATM withdrawal will be limited, meaning first come, first serve until it dries out. Whoa, all right. And then we look at a tweet here from @Assets Daily, and it says here, JP Morgan, first big bank to shutter branches. Major banks are starting to close. And this is interesting because here, PNC Bank already closed, and now there's only 5 cases in my county that we know of. But last week, they said one person came into the account that has COVID-19, and they shut down all the PNC banks in my area. All of them. It's interesting, right? One bank, the small banks go, and they can't pay the banks above them. They can't pay the banks above them. Then all those banks fall. But unlimited quantitative easing, printing money. Why are they printing money? Because we talked about it yesterday. They already know all that debt's going to get wiped away when we go to the digital dollar, right? I don't know what you guys did. I'm curious, have you guys taken your money out of the bank? I know I did. I told my parents and everybody I know to take money out the stock market about a month and a half ago in January. I said, there's a bubble happening, take it out. But if I'm listening to this guy right here,
you don't need to. Your ATM is safe. Your banks are safe. There's enough cash in the financial system, and there is an infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve. We will do whatever we need to do to make sure that there's enough cash in the banking system.
So again, he says there's enough cash in the banking system. We will do whatever to make sure there's enough cash. There's an unlimited amount of cash from the reserve. So he just basically answered everything we need to know, is that there is not enough cash. So they got to print more. And if you take your money out, we're hurting. We're done. Our bank system collapses. This is the start of the 4th Industrial Revolution. I mean, I know it started with the internet, but this is really the last part of it. Banks go close. I don't know about you, by the way. My internet has been going real slow. Rolling blackouts in San Francisco. Phones slowing down. Netflix slowing down. Are you guys having those problems? Because the banking system is slowing down. They're limiting on the East Coast. Banks are running out of money. I don't know if you guys remember what happened in Greece in 2012, 2013, when all the banks went boom. Everything shut down. People couldn't take money out the ATMs, just over with, blackout. I believe that was a test run, right? What do you guys think? Do you think you keep your money safe? Is your money safe in the bank account? I took mine out. I got some in there to pay the bills, but I also keep my stuff on a crypto card. Now, I'm not sponsored by anybody and all that, but I just let you know what I do. I have a My Crypto card. Yeah, they work with Visa, but I can put my money and do my trades, my XRP again. I know I talk about that every episode, XRP all day. But I can buy and sell that stuff and use the cash on there to still make daily transactions. So if you haven't checked out My Crypto card, check it out, mycryptocard.com, and you can just have it and you take your money out of the bank. I mean, the banking system needs us to work, but they need us to be in debt. The credit system needs us to be in debt. That's why they want you to have it. That's why we're going to move to the digital dollar, because they want to track everything. They want to make sure we have to use them, but you don't need to. That's the point of cryptocurrency. The point of Bitcoin is to have a decentralized system, but we know central banks aren't going away because they run the world, but the way they bank is going to change. What do you think about that? What do you think about that? Please leave your comments below. Write me back. I want to know. Tweet me at NewCreationCap. What are you doing with your bank? Is it full? Do you have more than $250,000 in your bank account? Did you know that? Did you learn something? Answer those questions. Hit me back. Let me know. Share this. Tell your friends. When they start telling you not to do something, that's when you got to do it. If it wasn't an issue, would you really have to take out your money? No. No one thought about taking their money out of the bank until they said not to. Now that they said not to, folks, this is not financial advice, but your money is gone. It's already gone. Why? Because they've been quarantining money. You saw it in China 2 months ago where they were burning money saying COVID-19 gets on it. Now, I know I shared in the special facts yesterday that it lasts on things for 17 days, but they're burning the money. They're quarantining money here, moving to a digital dollar. Folks, this is all planned a long time ago when David Schwartz worked for NASA, NSA. So, I don't know. Let me know what you think. Keep this going. All right, my friends. That's the rest of this topic. All right, so we've come to the end of the second episode. Thanks for tuning in today. Before we close, let's check into the market real quick. Today, the S&P actually marketed up 9.38%, up $209, and sits at $2,447. The NASDAQ is up 7.81%, up $546, sitting at $7,553. Crude oil is also up 2%, 0.49 cents, up to $24.82. Gold, shout out to Peter Schiff, is down 0.36%, down $5.92 at $16.16. And Bitcoin at the time of this recording is down 2.33% at $160 and is currently sitting at 66.08. The Dow Jones actually, up 11%, 11.37%, up 2,000 points, up at 2740, 2704, so it's now up above that 27 level again. And let's see a couple more cryptocurrencies. XRP is down 1.15%, Ethereum's down 1.19%, EOS is down, Litecoin is down. Right now, things are a little bit down, but not too much after a big gain yesterday. So before I go, I want to leave you guys with some thoughts. First, I want to shout out to my guys, Lee from Houston and the Viking from my Orcas and all the gentlemen from my Orcas Telegram group. Shout out to you. Not my group, just a group I'm a part of, but guys that we trade and we talk and we do our thing. So thank you guys for being supportive of my podcast and sharing it. I really appreciate you guys. Closing thoughts is I do a reading every morning. I know yesterday I shared a scripture with you, and I also do another little reading. I just want to read you something from it. And the point of this was talking about weights of balance, the avanim, right? It's a Jewish word for the weights of balance. And so we know we always see, when we think about justice, right? You see the Lady Liberty of Justice, where she has the ways you've been weighed, you've been measured, and you've been judged. And it closed this, and it says, back in the day, they used to use shekels and used to change the weight, so they would cheat you out of what you're owed based on weight. They used to take money. They're doing it in Venezuela right now, but they used to weigh money to decide how much something cost. And, we're really in a corrupt time right now. We corrupt morals, corrupt decisions, corrupt government, corrupt people, corrupt friends, family. We're just in a fallen world. I told you guys my beliefs. I'm not going to push it on you, but I am a believer. And so I do my reading. I just want to share this with you because the question is, in a corrupt world, how do you escape the corruption of the altered weights? Here's what this thing I read this morning says. The way you change corruption of altered weights is you never change the truth to fit your will. Change your will to fit the truth. Never bend the word of God to fit your life. Bend your life to fit the word of God. Beware of false standards and stay far away from the weights of falsehood. So in this time of uncertainty and all these times of lies and corruptness, stay away. If you are a Christian, stick to your word. If you are a believer of something else, stick to your word. You know, I'm not going to tell you how to live your life. I just know how I live my life. And I just try to pray for you guys in peace and love and faith and hope, and just try to live the best straight path that I can and be the best human I can be, honestly. So what are you doing right now to kind of fight that corruption? Don't let it get to you. Stay focused on the goal. Remember what I said? 1 foot in front of the other, 1% better each day. Be better tomorrow than you are today. Be better today than you were yesterday. Be better tomorrow than you are today. You know, just do what you got to do. It's not too bad. So thank you again for listening to the second episode. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share, you know, do the social media thing for us. All the links are in the description. You can kind of get a link to the story of the day, the different tweets, the articles that I was there. There's also a donate button if you want to help make this podcast go. I know right now that a lot of people, like my dad, whose birthday I told you is April 1st, he lost his job today. He's been laid off as their factory closes. He's been working in that factory for 30 years and it's closed. So I just think that's interesting. Besides that, just thank you guys for tuning in. I'm going to leave you guys with a little recording from Pastor Stephen Furtick. It's going to be next. So if you want to take a listen. It's pretty awesome. I hope you guys are having a great day and trying to fight this lockdown, because this is serious. So I pray for all of you. I hope all of you are keeping your head up, because this will be over. We will get through it and we will see the light. So remember, thank you for tuning in. It is a new you, a new future, and welcome to New Creation Podcast. Thanks for listening. Signing out, guys. Peace and love.
If God feels distant to you right now, you're not alone. All of us, even in our strongest moments, have this place in us where it's like, God, I wish I had a sign right now. I just feel uneasy. I don't feel at rest. I just feel that's all completely human and completely normal. Sometimes God uses distance in our feelings to call us deeper in our faith. And I thought it was important to say that right now, because while we're having to keep physical distance, I believe that God is calling us to spiritual depth. See, I don't want to just get through it. God, don't just get me through it, but teach me. There's something about distance. Graham said, why did God do all the miracles back then, but he doesn't now? It's not that God does less miracles. It's just we see them better in the distance. We see it better in the distance. It's like, God, why won't you do a miracle while you're watching me preach on your phone? This is a miracle. You see, like right now in this moment, take a breath. It's a miracle. Think about all the sin that he canceled. We're talking about everything that was canceled. I'll tell you what was canceled. The record of wrong that stood against me that he nailed to the cross, and I bear it no more. So it is well with my soul. I looked at my portfolio for finances. It wasn't well. But then I looked at my soul and I found out he's still with me and he's in me. And there's some kind of hope that comes rising up to the surface. When God feels distant, he isn't. He's positioning you for a miracle.